Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello. Welcome back to Soul Archaeology. How are you feeling after that very intense, fiery, activating full moon in Aries? The cardinal grand cross that applied pressure to that moon was really wild. It was really interesting to see how the energy was building leading up to it, how it sort of climaxed or accessed the boiling point and then has still been integrating. With Mars, Chiron, Pluto in the mix, it was such a deep underworld journey, and something we will continue to navigate as we move through the next month, the next 2 months really. Anything being activated at the last degrees, the last 4, 5, 6 degrees of cardinal signs is getting this intensification from Pluto at 29 degrees of Capricorn. So anything you have at the last degrees of your cardinal signs, any placements you have there will be brought into the underworld to really deepen its influence. So it's a big time for anyone with cardinal placements, especially at the last degrees. And also for those who have fixed placements at the beginning degrees as well, there will be a whole new chapter opening, something you've been navigating and working through over the last year that really sets the stage for a new chapter emerging in November. And as we know, there's always this powerful alchemical point where death meets rebirth. And it's this point, this alchemical point where death and rebirth merge. And this is really Pluto's territory. It's Pluto's territory. It's Scorpio's territory. And that's much of what we will talk about today. Whenever I picture that place, I always picture it as this sacred pause, this second of quiet and peace before the new is born. And that's really where we are in so many ways. We're moving back from that point into the death and then forward into the rebirth. And it's this back and forth, this contraction into ourselves, into our internal spaces as we emerge renewed. And we've been in this push and pull for so long. It is naturally the rhythm of life. It's this back and forth, this contraction and expansion. And sometimes growth looks like expansion and only expansion. But what we don't notice are the tiny little contractions that are held within that process that allow us to expand more and more each time. And within those contractions, there's death, there's letting go, there's release. And we need the death as much as we need the rebirth. We need the old to fall away. We need the old to decay, to feed the next chapter, to feed the soil of what's to come so that it can be nutrient dense and rich, so that it can have wisdom and experience from the past. So we can't simply keep growing. We have to pull back and release and let go and let things die and decay in order to feed the new growth. That is the process here on Earth. And anyone I'm working with who's going through a major change portal, who's being asked to expand and grow, to do something differently, to move into a new state of being, to change something drastically within their lives, they're always met with fear. Fear of change, of what's to come. And it's in those points of contraction where we meet the fear, where we dissolve it, transmute it, meet our past, where it comes from, in order to move forward more fortified, more resilient, more confident. So these contraction points are so powerful, and they really give us the fuel, the nutrients we need to move forward in a way that is sustained, resilient, and fortified. I'm getting all scorpionic on you guys, but this is totally my territory. I have a Libra sun, a Scorpio rising, a Pluto in the first house, a Sagittarius moon. So going into these deep spaces and places are really where I thrive. It's understanding how we stay with the discomfort and still access joy, still access peace. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because we are still in Libra season until the 22nd. And this Libra season, similar to last Libra season, has been hijacked by this plutonic karmic layer, with Pluto being in Capricorn, the South Node being in Libra. So over the last 2 Octobers, we've had these very sort of scorpionic and plutonic layers flavoring Libra season, which is oftentimes a more balanced, harmonious, light, vibrant, Venusian type of season. But it has very much been hijacked by Mars and Pluto. It's been hijacked by the South Node. It's been hijacked by our past. But this is truly the environment that we're existing within at this time. This push to confront the ways in which we avoid or dissociate or run or move away from conflict, to move away from the process of death, of decay, of confrontation for transformation. So all of you Libras, I love you. I see you. I understand. I get it. We've been in a 15-year portal of being squared by Pluto. It's been intense. We deserve a break. We're Libras. Come on. But this is where we get to mature, where we get to evolve, is moving beyond this lower expression of Libra, which can be and exist at the surface, which can really sort of skim the surface and try to keep the peace through self-sacrifice and abandoning self, and instead moving into a space of depth, of courage, of rebalancing, of harmony, not through avoidance or people pleasing or dissociation, but through it, moving through it, confronting it, and finding the peace, the balance, the harmony on the other side. This is the evolutionary work of Libra. It's staying present with what is so that it can be transmuted, so that it can be rebalanced. This week we do enter Scorpio season, so we're reflecting on this month, where we've been. We've had 2 eclipses, one in Pisces and one in Aries. We've had this presence of Mars and Pluto, this sort of foreshadowing or build towards the pressure that these 2 planets are beginning to put on each other. The pressure, the intensity that's beginning to build as they near their opposition. We've been working through this South Node journey of releasing our karma around people-pleasing, dissociation, self-abandonment, avoidance, so that we can lean into the fire and flame of Mars, of Aries. We can lean into the transformative properties of fire, the transformative properties of passion, confrontation, and courage. And as we sort of taper off this, the last few degrees of this journey of the North and South Node in Aries and Libra, we are going to once again enter water and earth, Pisces and Virgo. And it's similar with shifting from the air of Libra into the water of Scorpio. So we begin Scorpio season this week on October 22nd, but right before that, the sun, which will be at 29 degrees Libra on October 22nd, will square Pluto. So this Libra season is ending with an intense square between the sun and Pluto. This is an illuminating point. This is a pressure point. This is where the sun, which is our ego, which is our identity, is putting pressure on Pluto, the planet of death, transformation, rebirth, the underworld, our subconscious. We keep getting these waves of light. There will be some major solar flares this week as well. So once again, another wave of light to illuminate what's hidden within us, what's hidden within the collective consciousness and our own individual consciousness. It will illuminate any power dynamics we still hold within relationships. So we have this activation of the sun illuminating, bringing more light, awareness, and consciousness to our power dynamics, to our relationship with desire, where we are perhaps blocked or where we are needing more boundaries, where we're needing more awareness and consciousness around our desires, our need for control, and our need for power. And then later that day, the sun officially enters Scorpio. And I really want to talk today about Scorpio, the archetypes of Scorpio, and its co-rulers, Mars and Pluto. So we're in this very deep alchemical portal. Scorpio season is always deep. It's always intense. It's always revealing. It's always bringing us into the spaces that we avoid, forcing us to feel and to understand our emotions more deeply. Not only are we entering Scorpio season, but we're also building more and more into this opposition between Mars and Pluto. And this configuration is something I've been talking about quite a bit in the last few episodes because it is such a major theme over the next 6 months. But especially now, we will have an exact opposition between Mars and Pluto at the anaretic degrees of 29 degrees Capricorn, which is where Pluto will be, and 29 degrees Cancer, which is where Mars will be on November 3rd. And Mars and Pluto actually have a pretty interesting relationship. Mars is considered one of the inner planets. It's one of the 7 main planets within traditional astrology. But Pluto was actually not discovered until 1930. So we utilize Pluto in modern astrology in a different way than the inner planets. Pluto is actually considered the higher expression or a more evolved version of Mars, where Mars is primal, it's physical, it deals with aggression, desire, fight, action. It holds so much charge that can be felt so intimately on the physical plane, within our consciousness, in our daily lives. It impacts our daily lives. Pluto is much more unconscious. It deals with spirituality. It deals with our soul. It deals with power and aggression and struggle, death and transformation, trauma. But it's so much further from us. So it holds less of a charge in our daily lives. Sometimes the effects of Pluto aren't felt until years afterwards. It takes time. I've talked about this before on this podcast, that the change that we experience through Pluto happens like erosion. It happens over time. They're both very intense and they hold similar evolutionary purposes, but we experience them in different ways. Mars is the planet of action, change, movement, and Pluto is the underworld. And when these two forces come together, we experience an excavation process. Old, dark material and data, karmic material and data from childhood, from past lives, from ancestry gets pushed to the surface through the force, the fire, the heat of Mars. Pluto might be small, but it's icy fire. It's white fire. Mars is red fire. It's the flame that you feel close, that you can feel the warmth and the heat. We can feel the intensity of Pluto's fire much further away. And when these two begin to work together, either in a square, an opposition, or a conjunction, they begin to put pressure on each other to create some sort of change, some sort of reckoning. When this happens, while we're in Scorpio season, it's intensified. I think of Mars, Pluto, and Scorpio as a family. They all hold such similar evolutionary properties. They hold similar evolutionary goals. This is deep digging. This is heavy lifting. This old, dark, heavy material wants to come to the surface to be worked through and transmuted. It's the process of alchemy, turning lead to gold and bringing the dense, dark material up to the light to be transformed. So we have Mars currently at 24 degrees Cancer, moving into an opposition with Pluto. And this isn't happening till November 3rd exactly, but we're continuing to feel the intensity build. Just like with all transits, we begin to feel it as like a spectrum. The planets move and start to build in intensity as they begin to create these more exact angles. So at 29 degrees on November 3rd, Mars in Cancer will oppose Pluto in Capricorn. And as we know, Pluto is doing its last stretch in Capricorn. It is really trying to wake us up to something, wake us up to our own internal landscape, our own relationship with power, with control, with finances, the masculine, success, systems. It is desperately trying to wake us up to something, to bring this unconscious material to the surface, to be worked through, to be seen, to be transmuted, to be composted. With Mars beginning its opposition, it's lighting a fire to this process. It's bringing more intensity to it. It's bringing more to our consciousness because Mars is aiding in this process of transmutation, but also reckoning and confrontation. So this journey will not let us get away with anything. Once again, the sun in Libra aspecting Pluto and Capricorn at the last degree, it will bring forward examples of where we are avoiding conflict, intensity, medicine within our lives. Because as we know, we have to transmute the density to create medicine. That is alchemy. That is the alchemy of this lived experiences being human, is moving from a space of hopelessness, helplessness, victimhood, becoming victim to our experiences, to our traumas, to our pain, moving from that space into a space of self-empowerment, becoming the alchemists within our lives, turning our lead, our density to gold, to light, to something of great value. Mars and Pluto, their relationship is so interesting. Like I said, Mars is sort of a lower expression or a more unevolved version of Pluto. So when they work together, they are working to complete or reach a similar goal. This opposition happens typically every 2 years, but it of course depends on the retrograde periods of both Mars and Pluto. And because we are moving into a Mars retrograde in December, we will have this opposition 3 different times, which is more rare. We have an exact opposition happening, like I said, on November 3rd at 29 degrees Capricorn and Cancer, January 3rd at 1 degree Aquarius and Leo, and April 25th at 3 degrees Aquarius and Leo. So this is the last Mars-Pluto opposition we'll have along this axis of Capricorn and Cancer in our lifetimes. We're essentially closing power struggles from the last 15 years of Mars and Pluto action, plus many different lifetimes, of course. We are closing out big karmic contracts, surfacing heavy and dense karmic material that we've been carrying for many lifetimes, uncovering and excavating themes around relationship, emotional suppression, the feminine, the masculine, this axis of Capricorn and Cancer, which has been such a major theme. Any planet that is crossed Cancer or Capricorn has been creating an aspect to Pluto at some point over the last 15 years. It's bringing us into the unconscious material around the masculine and feminine, the mother and father archetype, home and work, family karma, because this is the axis of family and work. The 4th house, which is Cancer, is the family. The 10th house is career, it's work. So wherever you have Capricorn and Cancer in your own natal chart is where you've been experiencing such a heavy activation of moving through, releasing, excavating karmic material and data, uncovering what's subterranean within you, what's held within the underworld, to be remothered, refathered, reparented, loved, integrated, released, transmuted. And Pluto is icy fire. It's unearthly fire. It's fire that's so hot you can feel it burning from centuries away, lifetimes away. It's unearthly. It's subterranean. It's karmic. It's familiar but unfamiliar at the same time. Mars is earth flame, earth fire. It's the fire we know and understand. It's our anger, our aggression. It's pressure. It's charge. When these two work together, it is bringing and merging the unconscious and the conscious. Our relationship with anger, power, desire, sex, transformation, death, and rebirth. Something is coming to an end, a crisis point, a climax, the point of release, a boiling point. Where do you have Capricorn in your chart? Where do you have Cancer in your chart? This is where you'll be releasing so much old karmic data, especially with Pluto at the last degree of Capricorn. Wherever you have 25 to 29 degrees cardinal placements, so Libra, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, and wherever you have 1 to 4 degrees fixed placements, so Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, you will feel this most. This is where death meets rebirth. It's where we begin to let go of what was so that we can create new. This is where we begin to examine our relationship with our primal, tribal aspects of self. Where can we evolve these aspects? Where can we let go of the spaces where anger, fear, desire run our lives? How can we transmute these spaces to step into a more evolved and higher expression of self? Both of these planets can be quite ruthless and intense, and pairing that with Scorpio season is a lot. They all hold similar characteristics, similar qualities, similar evolutionary goals. Surrender, transformation, death, rebirth, reckoning, change. This transit holds so much alchemical power and opportunity. It gives us fire and flame to transform our relationship with power, with the spaces where we need to make changes, our will and our desires. It might feel like everything is falling apart, or the areas of your chart where this is activating you most are dissolving, falling apart without any clear direction. But it is a very direct and intentional fire that reaches only the spaces within you, the spaces within your lives that need transformation. It can also be helpful to look back to the last few Mars and Pluto oppositions that we've had along this axis. In 2020, March of 2020, we had a Mars and Pluto conjunction at 24 degrees. In June of 2021, we had a Mars and Pluto opposition at 26 degrees. In March of 2022, we had a conjunction at 27 degrees. And in May of 2023, we had an opposition at 0 degrees of Leo in Aquarius. On February of 2024, we had a conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius and Leo again. And then now we're moving into an opposition at 29 degrees Capricorn and Cancer. And these are the cycles. And a conjunction is a new beginning. It's a rebirth point, similar to a new moon. An opposition is similar to a full moon. It's a reckoning. It's a point of maturation or completion. And we're at that space, the last one along this axis. So this is an opportunity for you to harness the alchemical power of this transit, of this time. It impacts all of us differently, depending on our own internal experiences, our own natal charts. But it is the time to take the reins, to access our own internal fire and flame, to meet this transit with that fire and flame, with that courage, with the highest expression of our conscious warrior self, our hearts, integrating our relationship with fire, with passion, with courage. And as we move into Scorpio season on the 22nd, we meet another type of fire. And although Scorpio is a feminine, fixed water sign, it holds the energy of transmutation, of transformation, of change, of fire in its own way. And the archetype of Scorpio, there's actually 3 sub-archetypes within Scorpio. And it's such an interesting sign. It's one of my favorite signs to study. And it's the sign where we transition from the Venusian journey through Libra, finding pleasure in relating, mingling, exploring, and examining relationship. The 7th house is the house of Libra. It's the house of balance, beauty, harmony, peace, relationship. I always think about the 8th house and Scorpio season as the space where the honeymoon phase wears off. It's where we begin to deepen into relationship, where the shiny sort of pheromones and chemicals that draw us to someone start to wear off. The sparkle starts to wear off, and we begin to take off the rose-colored glasses and start to see the other with clarity. And of course, as we know, when we see the other with clarity, we're really seeing ourselves with more clarity too. And as we enter the 8th house, we enter into the depths of Scorpio, this ice water. It's like doing a cold plunge after having a warm, sunny summer. It's where we start to see the subtle nuances and patterns of the other person start to surface. It's real, it's honest, it's true, it can be ruthless at times. Scorpio is the alchemist of the zodiac. It transforms. It is death, it is rebirth, it's change. The 3 archetypes of Scorpio are the scorpion, the eagle, and the phoenix. The scorpion is the less evolved aspect of Scorpio. It walks the earth. It stays close to the earth. It is hidden, reclusive, quick to sting. It's reactive. It's protective over the ego. The eagle is more evolved. It's still fierce, but it's also able to rise above the fight and see the wider perspective, the greater picture. But it can still be manipulative or judgmental. The highest expression of Scorpio is the phoenix. And it's the courage to dissolve self to find self. It knows that transmutation happens through presence, through embracing the fire, embracing the pressure, embracing the difficulty. It is the conscious warrior that rises from the ashes, uses its subconscious material to transform, rather than avoiding it or protecting it. It's detaching from the ego and the self in order to rebirth. The highest expression of Scorpio is the alchemist, the phoenix. She transforms again and again, turning lead to gold over and over again, turning old toxic material into medicine that she may use to continue along her path of growth and evolution. So we see this interesting relationship with Pluto and Mars, both rulers of Scorpio, Mars being the traditional ruler, Pluto being the more modern ruler. I see them as co-rulers of Scorpio. They hold different aspects of Scorpio, different levels of consciousness of Scorpio. For those of us that have Pluto in Scorpio as our natal Pluto placement, if you were born between 84 and 95, it really defines a generation, our Pluto placement. And I want to do a whole episode on Pluto placements because I really truly think it tells us so much about our evolutionary place and goals within this life. But we're really here to transmute lead to gold, the old unconscious karmic material, ancestral, generational trauma, all of the density that we have been afraid to look at as individuals and as a collective, into gold, into medicine. That's why we see so much subconscious work, so much trauma work coming to the surface. And I think it's no surprise that this Mars and Pluto opposition is happening within Scorpio season during this exact time in human history, while the Pluto and Scorpio generation is coming into its full maturation, full power, because we are here to be leaders within this shift, this great cosmic seismic shift. It is not easy work. It is heavy lifting. Anyone I know who has Pluto and Scorpio, I have a very similar conversation with each person, and it has been a journey. But many of us are coming into our full maturation of our Scorpio, of our subconscious, of our understanding of self, so that we may use what we've transmuted to create more medicine for ourselves and for the world. Pluto and Scorpio both show us that we must face death to transform the ego. And as we know, that's such a huge piece and part of our global suffering is our fear of death and our lack of relationship with death and understanding of death. Pluto and Scorpio can be so helpful in helping us understand that those death points, those contraction points, are where we gain more strength, more material to move forward. When we can integrate our fear of death, we can integrate more power and create more resilience to move through those grief portals, those change portals with more ease. When we think about Scorpio through the lens of Pluto, it's more subtle and old. It's not often conscious, but immensely impactful. Through the lens of Pluto, Scorpio is here to learn the power of love rather than the love of power. And I think that really defines where we are as a species as well. When we look at Scorpio through the lens of Mars, it's much more personal. Like I said, it's a personal planet. It's an inner planet. So it's more conscious. It's more physical. It's looking at our aggression, our anger, our reaction, our movement, our assertiveness. So these are all things that will come to light over the next month. And as we know, we move in and out of these waves of awakening, of light. We have major solar flares happening this week, so we will have to integrate more light. It's where we experience illumination, integration, release, grounding, and then it repeats. We ride these waves of awakening deep within our bones, moving through more opening as we release, as we die, as we contract. This is an important time to move your body. Mars really needs movement. And when we're dealing with the physicality of Mars, we need to move the energy through our bodies. I've been having to do a lot of shaking this week, a lot of physical somatic movements to ground, to anchor, to release some of the charge. I pulled the Wolf card in the Untamed Elemental deck, and I know I haven't been pulling cards in the recent episodes, so I wanted to get back into it. And it's all about awakening your wildness. Wolf is a maternal ancestor from a loyal breed. Her unapologetic wildness is the result of always being tuned into the subtle understanding of her instinctual impulse to survive. She is unimpeded by external forces. She trusts her own sharp temperament and mind and is inspired by the ritualistic aspect of the hunt. Wolf guides you to awaken your wildness. It is time to unlock your whole imitable and untamed self Immerse your body in water. Let it dry in the sunshine. Engage in conversation with loved ones. Harmonize in song, stargaze, dance. Welcome new ideas. What you lose in productivity will make up for in the revival of dormant instincts that will guide you to make efficient, powerful choices. Nurture what your ancestral guides have instilled in you and trust the process. A journey into your free, authentic self awaits. When it's balanced, you feel keen, wise, and powerful. When it's imbalanced, you feel like you have blocked instinct and muted intuition. To bring into balance, become witness to the relationship between your conscious and subconscious mind. Cultivate the relationship between your mind, body, and spirit. That could not be more spot on. I would say the wolf is an archetype of the energies we've been describing today. And when we can harness our power, our internal power, rather than seek to grasp externally for our power, we become the masters of our experience. And this is what this time will reveal, or where we are seeking power externally rather than sourcing it from within. Thank you so, so much for being here, for being present, for always listening, tuning in, sharing the episodes. I've met so many of you over the last few weeks in sessions and through DMs, and it's just been such an incredible experience getting to know you, hearing about your stories, how the episodes resonate. I love you all. I can't tell you how appreciative I am of your support. And so I'm excited. I feel like new things are kind of building, and I'm planning to create some new things in 2025. So thank you for being here along for the ride, and I'll continue to bring the information in as we navigate these, more tumultuous times. Just know that you have what you need. Your toolbox is held within self. Sending so, so much love.